Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yusuf Pachmariwala. I am the Chief Operations Officer at Tata AIA Life. I've been here since inception of this company, 2001, and was earlier with bank and custodian services earlier. So I think that's all I would want to say, and just say, stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Sriraj.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I am Sriraj Deshpande. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Future Generali India Insurance. That's a non-life one. I've been here since 2010. Prior to that, I was in Bajaj Allianz. And prior to that, I was with New India Insurance. So I started my career with New India Insurance.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Deepu, can we have your introduction?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here. My name is Deepu and I handle operations, customer service and communities at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company Limited. And my key mandate in my role is to drive digital transformation and industry leadership.
Thank you, Deepu. Welcome.
Thank
Srinivasan, your introduction, please.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Srinivasan Iyengar. I have been in the insurance industry now for close to 36 years. I manage the operations and technology for Reliance Life Insurance.
Thank you, Srinivasan. And Hitesh?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Hitesh Veera. I am the Joint President Operations for Kotak Life. I have been with Kotak all along my career. Started my stint in the consumer finance division. Eventually in 2007 moved to Kotak Life Insurance and handling operations.
Great. Thank you, Hitesh. We also have our knowledge partner, in this case, Blue Prism. Typically, we have an IT company as a knowledge partner that brings some specialized content to the discussion. Can we have your introduction, Mahesh?
Absolutely. Thanks, Manoj, for calling out. And thank you all. A great, eminent panel, I should say. Really happy to be part of it. My name is Mahesh Ariyaran. I look after the financial services business for the India South Asia region. So happy to learn from you all and contribute in whatever little I could do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh. So welcome, everyone. Let's jump right in. I'd like to start on a lighter note, if possible. If anyone has any kind of anecdote or joke post-COVID in terms of operations, you want to open up, anyone wants to be the opening batsman with some kind of light-hearted humor? Your favorite joke going around about yourself. If you can laugh at yourself, you're happening in life.
Let me make an attempt actually.
Yes.
I think this question is specifically with respect to the COVID crisis. Okay, so COVID has kind of made us play multiple roles at the same time. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I'm a chartered accountant, but sometimes I'm really wonder, am I really the right person to do this kind of a job? So from designing processes where one has to really think like an engineer, to ensuring compliance and interpreting regulations, or even studying or signing contracts, one has to be like a lawyer. To decipher technological options, you have to have the IT skills. So what is it actually? So you're like a proficient actor who has to play different roles. One thing is that an actor can communicate to his director. Here for a CEO, I would say there is no director, and I think one has to just maneuver according to the circumstances.
So all the best to your acting skills, ultimately. That's a good one. Okay. On that lighter note, let's go ahead. So my first question is this. All of you during post-COVID would be facing all kinds of challenges. Some challenges would have straightforward solutions and some would have really complex solutions. Could you give examples of both so that we know what are the real complex ones? And are they, let's say, are they same for all of you? Are they different for each of you? So if you can give one example of something simple and one example of something complex. Anyone who wants to start? Operations perspective.
Maybe I'll take this.
Yes, Yusuf.
So a simple example is something which we're not used to earlier. In insurance, generally, in life insurance particularly, you sell insurance, you kind of collect premiums, you do all servicing, and you kind of, the distribution, everyone goes to the customers to kind of help them do all those things. But at the time of claim is something, normally the claimant only approaches the insurance company to get the claim settled. With the branches being closed and also claimants not comfortable coming out of their home to settle the claim, this was an area which we saw that in April and May, the number of claims are very, very low, negligible. Simple reason
Okay.
being branches were, in some areas of containment not open and so on, and claim is not ready to come out and so on. So this was a complex problem, and then we found a very simple solution to this. We as a company provide a host of service to our customers. That we will come to your home to collect premium check, to collect the new insurance policy document, and so on. That is where we kind of partnered with some people and said, okay, we will come to your home to even settle the claim. So we launched an initiative called Easy Claim, that the claimant can just call us on the call center and say, there is a claim, and from there on we'll take over the process and we'll come to your house, collect the documents, ensure everything is complete, and kind of go ahead and do it. It is something very simple which we did, but it's kind of got a lot of positive appreciation from the customers, agents, and claimants, and so on. So I would say a complex problem, but a very simple solution.
Interesting. And
On
vice
the
versa? Any simple
and
problem?
vice versa, yeah, and vice versa, I'm sure will be very, very similar for most of them over here. Is we all are used to working from home. Everybody's working from home today. Everybody's kind of got used to it. The process, and then we all are wondering, why we were going to office for the last so many years, right? So all that is kind of working very well. I think we haven't been able to find the right balance, between work and life, because now the boundaries have kind of just disappeared. So this is a very common complaint that everybody has. There is no work-life balance. I'm working throughout the day and so on. And how do you keep your teams motivated, engaged? Because this is very good. We are able to connect very quickly over here and so on. But what has happened is earlier, when you used to go for a meeting, you would say, have that small talk and get into discussion and so on. Like imagine if this conference was in a in a 5-star, we would have all gathered in a room, spoken for 15-20 minutes, half an hour, and then got into the conference. Here we got connected 2 minutes before the time, and we are into it, and we'll exactly discuss the time and get into next meeting. So there is no breather time that we have right now. Frankly, I don't have an answer to that right now. So that's a complex problem which we possibly are all grappling.
Gentlemen, any other examples?
Yeah, Manoj, shall I go next?
Yes.
Manoj, shall I go next? Yeah.
Yes, Deepu.
Yeah. So I'll talk about two areas. the one which is complex or the one which is simple. I guess you all can figure it out. But I'll give you two scenarios.
Okay.
So when we started, Manoj, when the lockdown happened, you'll recollect that the lockdown was announced at 8 o'clock, with just 4 hours notice, and then it was for 3 weeks. The call centers were shut down overnight, which meant because there was no there was no transport, and obviously people can't go to work.
Correct.
So of course, what we had done was embark on a massive communication blitzkrieg, and we told customers to use our digital channels because we have mobile app, we have WhatsApp, we have chatbots, so on and so forth. But there's still a percentage of customers who want to use the contact center. So we began to think. We said, okay, we have telecallers who are sitting at home, but these telecallers are not obviously working from office. They're working from home, and you have to understand how large call centers work, right? Because you have large shop floors and you have a lot of people. So when customer calls come in, the inbound call monitoring software will queue up the calls and then transfer the calls to the executives as they get freed up from their earlier calls. That's how it works. Now, when you have people working in a scattered manner and work from home, right, this entire thing goes haywire. Right. So we said, let's figure out a smart way. Since we have calling capacity available, we said if customers can't contact us, let's contact them. So we said we'll convert inbound capacity into outbound capacity. But the question is, how do customers know that, or rather, how do the telecallers know when to speak to customers? So we said, let's do one thing. Let's tell customers to give us a missed call. We'll call them back. Okay. So suddenly we converted this entire inbound sitting idle into missed call plus outbound. It was a very simple solution, but it worked very effectively for us. And the reason I'm saying very effectively is because at that time I got calls from a lot of my peers in the industry as well as folks from outside the country. And then when I told them this, they were all surprised, by the simplicity and effect of the solution. They said, it is. It's simple but very effective. So that was one. The other is, the point that Yusuf made, and linkages to that when we have to, overnight practice social distancing, right? And people are working from home, they are socially distanced and physically distanced. But we have to understand that when it comes to operations and customer service, we have to connect with people, because in the service industry, people don't call you up to give you compliments. People only call you up, or people only come to you when they have issues. So in a way, you get, let's say, Karela, but you're supposed to give the sweetest juice to everybody because you're only, receiving bad news, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep people motivated? You have to keep them morally and digitally connected. So we were wondering, and what we did was we converted adversity into opportunity. And let me give you an example. Okay. We said, now that people are working from home, why should we only focus on engaging employees? Why can't we engage families? So, for example, when we came out with a MasterChef program, We told them it's open to your families. And now that people are working from home, it's not about people preparing and coming to office. We have a WhatsApp group. We told them, please post recipes, please post photographs. So somebody's mother, somebody's wife, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, somebody's cousin, they all posted photographs, and we could see photographs of dishes from all over India because everybody is making from home, from Kerala to Punjab to Rajasthan to Bengal, right? So you saw photographs, and we announced, the winners. Families were excited. Then we did, a live concert on Mother's Day. Then we did online Antakshari. And then we did so many employee engagement programs, other family engagement programs, that our employee score during COVID was far higher than our employee engagement score pre-COVID.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So 2 examples, you figure out which one was simple, which one was complex.
Both are exciting. I'll go by that. 1 or 2 more, and then we'll go to the next question. One each.
So this is Srini.
Yes,
if I just give us an impactful rather than calling simple or complex. There's something. So when this whole lockdown and other stuff started, the fact was for the whole retention team had to call the customers. So second is there's also no privacy of the employee's number, which can cause intrude into their privacy. And yet we had to ensure the work was getting done. So what we and then this whole thing when the lockdown was at its height, and we didn't want to keep our people also idle, because it's also the question of collections.
Right.
So we came across this startup which engaged with us to create a sort of a small app using which you just dial in the number and it connects to the through the normal line. It connects it to the customer. The customer sees a specific landline number. So thereby you are not exposing the number of the customer service executive, the personal mobile number. It also records the call so that you know that what call the customer, it records the statistics. So you know that people have been actually calling from home. People have been actually calling the customer. At the same time, we also realize that when I speak with the customer, I also need the policy details. So this app was able to connect to our core policy administration system and also throw the policy related key information which is needed for calling on the customer service executive's mobile as a pop-up. So now you had a customer service executive at that time calling from home, calling to the customer without compromising on his or her mobile number, at the same time get all the policy information from the backend and be able to securely throw it as a pop-up on the service executive's mobile. So the communication was effective. What this all resulted was by the end of Q1, so we started this somewhere around beginning of April, and by Q1 end, the total renewal collection for us on this Q1 was the same as last year's Q1. And we could attribute a large part of the success actually coming from this platform of calling. There was one complicated item that got extension was customer said, I want to pay, but I can't pay because no banks are there or I can't go out of my house. So we also introduced an online link that kept going from a different channel back to the customer and was also giving him 2 steps to actually make the payment. So this combination, I would say in a normal world, would not have been implemented had it not been for a COVID with the urgency that it deserved. The revenue for the company was we were able to deliver on the same numbers on renewal collection what was on Q1 last year. So this is something I would call this
very interesting
as thinking out of the box.
Absolutely, the insurance sector is traditionally known for thinking out of the box because it is a challenge to sell insurance, particularly life insurance. And I think COVID has actually, widened the box so that people really think more and more outside the box. Okay, shall we go ahead? Anyone has any other exciting example? Or
I think, Manoj, instead of giving very specific examples, I think the examples which all have given, I think are very, very relevant. So I just don't want to give any specific example. But broadly, if I just focus on the challenges, there are 2 types of challenges. One is there is a certain quantum of change that one has to manage. And this quantum just keeps on growing with every passing day, either because of the environment or because of regulations or because of, changing customer needs. That, in my opinion, is still a little simpler problem as it is just, I would say, a function of the resources you as business or as an organization you want to commit. But I
Okay.
think, the bigger challenge, and which is a little complex one to really resolve, is the sheer longevity and the relevancy of any initiative that you implement as a response to the change. Okay? And I will just explain that,
Okay.
you take up a project, thinking that probably you have a winner at hand, and which is clearly probably a differentiator. But in no moment you find that it is either commoditized or it has become obsolete. So in my view, I think, as they say, change is constant, but I think specifically in COVID times, the pace of change, and in addition to that, the technology developments, particularly with respect to the kind of options they throw to us, I think one has to be really very careful and judicial to choose among the options which are available. These are very generic kind of, I would say, observations. I'm not giving any specific examples. I think that there have been good number of specific examples that we've already discussed.
Right. Correct. So you've encapsulated it very well. And so you concluded on technology. Let me go to a technology kind of question. And there's a very simple question. Do you see a large variety of technologies being applied to help you cope with the COVID situation? Or do you see one or two key technologies making a huge difference for you? Maybe Sriraj would want to answer. Sriraj, what is your opinion?
Yeah,
What has actually worked for you?
Yeah, I will come at it in a very slightly different perspective. One is during this COVID. So in general insurance industry, one part was that even though you had apps to be provided to people, etc., to the intermediaries and everything, but still the usage was much lesser. So many of your intermediaries would always go into the traditional method of getting into the proposal form being filled up, scanned, and being putting in something. So suddenly you need to see that these people have to, suddenly they try to get into a digital mode, saying, no, we are wanting to source, but I can't deliver proposals. What am I going to do? Something, and they're not ready to use the apps. So it was something of a challenging type of a situation. So you make something, you prepare an e-proposal form with an OTP verification as a very simple thing, telling them that this is a very simple process, you do it. You suddenly start landing up seeing that the agent actually gives his mobile number for all the proposals. So he doesn't give the client proposal. So these are sort of a challenges which starts coming up at. So how do you actually monitor that? Yeah, you start monitoring it, trying to do shadows and trying to look at where this, how to control this. So you have to, I think one important part in this entire thing is that while the senior management can work from home very confidently, it is a problem for the lowest rung of data entry operators and those who work. So when I wanted to come in for this particular thing is, see, March 12 was somewhere we had our first BCP meeting, and March 15 we shifted people, so there were people who had desktops and people who had laptops. We could provide additional laptops, we gave them. But we took a decision, let us shift the desktops also home.
Okay.
To people. But now in cities like Mumbai, etc., you will see that I had a picture of in Dharavi, one of the employees sitting in a one single room. 6 people of his family members are there. He has अनाज के डब्बे के ऊपर उसने CPU रखा है, उसके ऊपर he's sitting on a bench and doing it. So this is something one is this. Second thing comes in is, you have any amount of technology, but the end user should have the bandwidth. Connectivity. So where is the connectivity there? So today we, people in the major cities, they come from different parts of suburbs. Kalyan se koi aata hai, Mirabai andar. The place where they say they don't have the actual connectivity, So we tried doing, okay, go on to the Google speed test, do the speed test, tell us what it is. So there are some places broadband is not available. You have to work on dongles. I think these are basic things which have to be tackled. Work from home is good for people who have got 100 Mbps connections and who have less of data entry to do. And the systems are, very light to carry. But if people have to get into the systems and do a large amount of data entry, it is a challenge and we need to actually, for example, how do we tackle it is, yes, we just went on and did total analysis of all our operation staff to find out at what bandwidth they are working. So because otherwise what was happening was that all complaints are coming. So it's like, as a joke, there are 2 cabins, one is the CEO and one is the COOs. So outside the CEO's cabin, you find a lot of pigeons. Cool. So all that, as Deepu said, all the dirt comes to the COO that this is not happening, your systems are not working, everything is not working. But then you need to diagnose that what is not working. Systems, okay, my server is working with at a particular capacity, it still has thing to do, but where is it? You go to and there's some simple thing, your intermediary has opened up 5 to 6 screens when you do a shadow, and he's actually using a Chrome version which is old and which does not. And he's trying to actually issue a policy and complaining this is not happening. So I think these are things which have to, because you spend on technology, you spend on at the office level, everything which is there, but at the base level, if this is not corrected, it starts getting hit.
So if I may summarize, you're saying that the technology intervention is required. Srinivasan, you gave a couple of examples of Reliance using this partner for call center and that payment solution. So overall, were you using a large number of technology solutions suddenly brought into the frame, or just it was 2 or 3 major things and then everything rest all was managed by the existing solutions and infrastructure?
So my take on this would be, see, the technology stacks were there.
Okay.
And the reality is there are no new technologies before COVID and after COVID. If somebody has and as a person who has been in this technology industry for now more than almost 3 decades, in this 6 months, there is no new technology that has come. What has fundamentally happened is the adoption, acceptance, whether by way of a push or by way of a pull, has made a huge difference on the technology space. I will give you some examples. One, an average online payment for let's say a premium, or let's say for a new business, you would find that traditionally the online payment would be not more than 50-60%. The rest of them typically you would find in checks and cash. It's not that the app or the technology was not there. What happened with this, there was a huge shift in customers' behavior, where you found suddenly people doing transactions on fintech apps like Paytms and all the world, buying grocery from Amazons and the big bazaars of the world, gave them the confidence to use the e-payment option, which then spilled over to other areas of their life where they were dealing, let's say in case of an insurance company. The platform stack was all there. Second was the fact that there were technologies which were slightly ahead of time and therefore was not seeing the light of the day. The earlier example that I talked about, ability to call from home to your customer and gets where there is an invisible, your office gets replaced with an invisible app, which does this routing and gets you the information by which you are able to connect with the customer sitting at your home. It does not matter whether a junior person or a senior person. If your role is to do that, so this technology was ahead of time. It did not see the light of day, or it did not gain the popularity because situation did not demand that.
Okay.
The COVID changed that scenario.
Yeah, right.
The third extreme that you would look from these technology is the one that has majorly transformed is the whole piece around video communications. That is one area in terms of technology that has, I would say, grown up by 3x, 5x, or even 10x. For example, how many people would have heard about Zoom? How many people would have heard about Microsoft Teams? How many people would have learned about the other pieces of software? They were there. What happened was this scenario created a very easy pull from the users to say, let's use this to make our life happening, because we have to deliver on our KPIs, or we have to deliver on whatever our goals are. If you're a customer facing, then the goals are accordingly different. Or if you're a backend person, then pure operations backend, your goals are slightly different. But the fact is, the video communication is the one that I would say is if you can pick up one item which has revolutionized, my take on the technology front is that is the one that revolutionized, or that created the glue using which everybody came together, though they were not together.
Right. Together without being physically together.
Yeah,
you're very right. I mean, not one day goes today for us, for all of us, I'm sure, where we are not into video conferencing with someone or the other. You're right. So bottom line I'm saying is, I'm summarizing, you're saying that a lot of the ecosystem of existing technologies such as video conferencing and WhatsApp and online payments and all, they got activated. Right. Let me come
Yes.
to Yusuf. And Yusuf, so Srinivasan has given the idea of the external ecosystem being leveraged. Um, any example of your internal? You talked about that the innovation that you talked about, reaching out to customers directly. What about technology changes within the organization post COVID? Were there a host of changes, or just two, three, you know, two, I will not say tweaks, two, three technologies that made a huge difference to Tata AIA?
Yeah. So, Manoj, I think there is no one, size fit all kind of solution. And what we look is fit for purpose. What kind of
Okay.
fits a particular purpose and so on. So there are very different kind of problems. In fact, I think a statement which I would like to make is after COVID, it has made us believe that anything is possible. And generally people here are in operations, we generally always say this thing to will never happen. Such a thing is technically one in 100 years, so it will not happen in our lifetime, so it
Black
will not
Swan.
go on. So that's very normal thing. But what COVID has taught us is anything is possible. So with that background, we have kind of now looked at a lot of things which earlier possibly we had not looked. So what earlier Shiraj mentioned, uh, we were on a digital business for most of our partners. They were kind of working through digital, but there are some partners who were still on a physical mode and so on. But instantly they all wanted to move towards digital, and overnight we had to kind of make customized processes, customized I would say journeys for them and so on, and we kind of implement those quickly. So that's something which we kind of did for them. Similarly, what Srini mentioned about the payments. So online payment has become a big thing. So earlier it was okay for us to receive some physical payment, okay for us to receive a auto pay mandate, on a physical NASH form. Now everything has to be done digitally. So the speed at which we've been working on saying, okay, how can we eliminate each and every process where we need a paper? And actually we were not even taking paper earlier also. Earlier also the paper was in the form of a scan copy. I would get a WhatsApp image from the customer and I would use it and so on. Now the idea is I don't want even that also, because I don't want my sales guy to actually go and sit in front of customer. How can I make that also a digital process? So there are a lot of small things which have been happening. So coming back to your question, are there one or two big technology solutions which will kind of answer all the problems? I don't think the answer is that. I think
Okay.
for the relevant problem, we need to find a relevant solution and kind of address that.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, that
Manoj,
kind of
can I
makes
add
sense
something?
also.
Manoj, can I add something?
Yeah. Yes, Deepu.
Yeah. So Manoj, it is a very valid question, given that everybody is working digitally. Now, if you see, we have three constituents. One is the customer, one is the employee, and the other is the partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, my co-panelists, touched rightly on, what, is happening from a partner or an employee perspective. But if I look at customers, I think to the point that Srinivasan made, there has been a wide adoption of, various technologies. So for example, today, if you look at our own call center, or rather our own customer servicing, call center used to be 70 to 80%. Today, it's only 20 to 30%, because the rest of it happens through our digital assets, right? Whether it is WhatsApp, whether it is our AI-driven bot, whether it is our mobile app, that has picked up pace. Second is today, one more thing which we have seen, Manoj, is because of COVID, everybody is wary of touch. Nobody wants to press the key in the ATM or the button in the elevator. So we are seeing a lot of, touchless, UI, UX come into play. And I'll give you two examples. So to the point again that Srinivasan made, we were ahead of time. We had integrated our AI-driven bot with Alexa and Google Assistant nearly 3 years ago, or 2.5 years back. Now, at that time, it was yet to see traction. It was ahead of its time. But now when people are wary of touch, we see the shift from text-based servicing to voice-based servicing. Similarly, when customers walk into our branches, because we want to minimize paperwork, there is no handshake, you want to maintain social distancing, so on and so forth. We have come out with a series of barcodes, QR codes. So customers scan the barcodes and they get their, requests fulfilled. So we are seeing that, coming along in a big way.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Mahesh, let me come to you. You have heard all these gentlemen talk about different kinds of technology solutions.
Yes.
Now, Blue Prism obviously has a lot of financial sector companies as clients. What is, from your perspective, when you interact with all these X number of clients that you have, probably hundreds, I guess.
Correct.
What is the response you're getting? Is it similar to what the chief operating officers here, the operations heads here are saying? Or is there something different as well? Because in some countries, the scenario might be different actually.
Correct. So, Manoj, to answer, I think first of all, great insights from all of them. I'll pick up few lines that everyone has said. Right. One I heard saying that anything is possible. Right. And in some sense, enterprise RPA or intelligent automation is really, and we believe that we make that art of possible. Right. And we really call it that way. The reason why we say is that we heard mention about there are a lot of technologies which are available. Where do you choose that from? Whether it's the right fit for you, right? So intelligent automation and RPA platform really comes in between all those legacy systems that we have had, or since that you have had in the post pandemic period. In pandemic, we're just talking about that, to all the new digital age technologies that are available through the insurtechs, or rather as fintechs, right? They come in and they have a lot of solutions that you have with the answer. So RPA, the platform, really becomes the bridge for that. So this is something which we feel, and as you said, since you said hundreds of customers, we have what close to 80% of our clients worldwide are in BFSI. The main reason being is that from a security angle, all of these access with the pandemic coming in, one of the biggest elements was that our employees, when they're working from home and when the BCP kicks in, right, are they able to access all these applications securely? Are there chances of fraud in some instance? Right? Are there chances of the customer service should be still at a very high pedestal? Because as I think Deepu said, right, customers really come back when issues are happening to you.
Yeah.
So we need to address that quickly. So RPA sort of becomes that bridge to connect all of this. Well, is that the only solution? Well, not, right? That is where the intelligent AI, the ML, quite a few of these things really come in, and you can plug and play and drag and drop and even create a new process by itself with the help of automation. That's where Blue Prism really stands out. So clearly, while it's not the only answer for all the problems, but yes, it's one of the major chunk points or the cross bridge, I would say.
So did RPA usage increase during since lockdown?
Absolutely.
In different parts of the world?
Absolutely. We have seen a big uptake of RPA across, the growth rates is one of the biggest, I would say. And like someone was saying, some of this has been really a pull mechanism because when operationally people are not available, can we identify as part of the BCP plan certain operation scenarios which can be outsourced to the digital worker, right? Who can equally do it smarter, and only then exceptions go back to the actual people to manage, right? So the other challenge of, for example, internet not available, etc. Definitely those are challenges, but certain mundane operations can still be moved out to the RPA, right? And this is not only applicable in India. There are quite a few other countries also where these kind of last mile issues are there. So it clearly has increased a lot in the adoption rate across the globe. And since the pandemic has cut across the globe, it has really helped us, help our customers in that way.
Okay. So since you guys handle operations, I'm guessing that most of your a large part of your work is not facing the directly customer, you and your teams. You're probably interacting a lot with other stakeholders within the organizations, the sales, the marketing, your own operations teams, finance, HR, whatever. And all of these guys are using all kinds of applications, and the number of applications is growing, the number of technologies is growing, the number of customer interactions is growing. So we're seeing, volume, velocity, variety, everything going up. More so during the COVID, but obviously before COVID also. So the question is this then, all these kind of challenges of volume, variety, and application and velocity, which ones are you tackling most urgently, and which ones are something that you need some time to tackle on a larger scale? Obviously, I think customer facing technologies you need to tackle, customer facing issues you need to tackle, but it should not happen that in tackling all these small 100 problems you miss out on a bigger opportunity to make some major change, okay, in the infrastructure. Maybe it is adopting cloud, maybe it is better integration, maybe it is better security, things like that. how do you prioritize the important over the urgent? Any thoughts on this? Something that will have a long-term impact and a bigger impact.
In my view, urgent over important is decided by only one factor: how much does it impact the organization?
Okay.
Now, if I'm going to ask that question as to how critical it is to the organization to deliver on a strategy or deliver on a company's business goal, now if customer comes first, and it is also the fact that not all the times you would have customer first, does not mean that it is trying to say service in a belittle way or anything. No. Now, for example, between something available on a call center, making a call center available to a customer versus making something available on a website as an additional feature. If customers are the one who always typically call the call center, that automatically takes the urgency over the other one.
Okay.
So similarly, when it comes to, let's say, for example, at the corporate functions, let's say you have finance. Now you have the classic example of, on a lighter vein in some of the sessions that I talk about on RPA AI, where it has been best used are in those functions in corporate, which is always, where one person works and stores in a shared folder, the other person picks it up from there and does his next part of the processing, is what RPA and AI has really made the difference in this post-lockdown. Because unless like two of us sitting next to each other, I do my job and then I ask you to take it on from there. Today, when you found out that we both don't sit next to each other, and probably when I send you a mail, probably it might be looked after an hour, whereas a bank file to be uploaded on the bank site is most urgent, is where you'll find technologies like RPA or AI really made the difference on moving the things much faster. So that, to give you an example, the long short story is the urgency or the lesser urgency is purely decided based on how is the impact value to the business.
Okay. Got it. Any other thoughts about, enhancing the efficiency within the operations?
So Manoj, firstly, when you said, you could be meeting stakeholders, see, from an operations perspective, you actually touch all three constituents, customers, partners, and employees, because your internal stakeholders obviously interact with you. And because it's a highly intermediated model, distributors, of course, get in touch with you. And of course, there is no function which does not face customers. Now, to the point that you asked about, urgent versus important, I'll pick a cue from what Srinivasan said in terms of impact on the organization. And I'll say that actually, the customers decide this. Because I've seen, for example, as you go through, your day-by-day journey, there are times when you build, building blocks, because every organization plans for the short term, the medium term, and the long term with their own definitions. What are these long terms, right? For example, if you're doing a large transformation program, it will not be done overnight. But similarly, if there is a very urgent, customer issue to be fixed, right? And you can have urgency, right? Because you can have car crashes, you can have people getting hospitalized. Then you have to do it immediately, paying a claim, so on and so forth. But what the pandemic has taught us is that, sometimes you just need to decide as quickly as possible. So I'll give you 2-3 examples. So when the pandemic first hit us, we realized, that initially what were firms doing? You're doing a copy paste. If you can work from office, how do you work from home?
Okay.
But what happens is when you move from the physical world to the digital world, sometimes some new risks and new challenges come up. For example, somebody asked me this, and I don't think I have an answer. How do you know today if somebody is not working for 2 companies? If he's physically working, he'll go to the office. But if you're working from home, you can't give a certain, certainty and say, I'm sure every employee of mine is only working for me, right? So that's one. Right. The other is that, customers started to, for example, worry about COVID-19 testing, but they can't go to the hospital. There's a lockdown, and plus in the quest to get tested, you can get infected. So what we did, we came out with the COVID-19 self-assessment tool on the mobile app. And we came out with that very rapidly in multiple languages. Customers just lapped it up.
Okay.
Similarly, when the lockdown happened, what is the lockdown on? Economic activity. What if somebody is not feeling well? How do you take care of him? So again, we came out with a doctor on chat and a doctor on video chat on a mobile app. Customers loved it because digital consultation and just go and buy medicines because medical shops are always available.
Yes.
Similarly, contact tracing, and this was before Arogya Setu came. So we came out with a feature called social trackback, on our mobile app. Log in your contacts and you know whom you have met. Now these features, because the need was new, we deployed extremely rapidly on our mobile app. So the point I'm saying is sometimes you don't have a choice. You read customers' needs and you realize that you have to, crunch through layers and do it quickly. So in such a scenario, short-term and long-term fuse to become just one, one whole, and then you have to deliver rapidly.
Thanks, Deepu. Let me ask Hitesh and Sriraj if there are maybe examples of something that is not customer facing. Let's say something that finance needs, or something that HR needs, something that risk wants, something that compliance wants. How are you handling? And they want it from operations.
Okay,
How are you?
maybe I'll share a couple of examples actually. I think you said non-customer examples actually. I think one example that I would like to give, other than probably the customer, the other important stakeholder for us, of course, all stakeholders are important, but I think a very influential and, as Srinivasan was saying, who's making the most noise, I would say, let's say the distributor actually. And we know actually the distributor is a very powerful, I would say stakeholder, and if he makes a noise, that, typically all organizations are dominated by, sales, and sales is also going to voice out, the distributor feelings. And in our case, particularly, I would say during the initial phase, April and May, when there was a complete lockdown, things are far more better now actually. But if you recall, April and May, there was a complete lockdown. And there was a question of livelihood, for many of our agents, actually advisors. Okay, and typically, of course, we have a very strong agency, and there are many advisors whose livelihood is dependent on the business that they do. And of course, there was a need to kind of also boost the business because things were not so great actually, and therefore the need came that why can't we do something where the advisor sees immediate benefit or immediate gratification. He does business and he sees immediate benefit. And then came the thought, why can't we just pay commission instantly moment? Let's say he logs in policy and the policy is converted. So this is one example actually. We were never doing it. Almost all the companies, manage this as a cycle. There are periodical cycles. You have a 15-day or a weekly cycle actually to pay commissions. Here comes a request. This is my distributor. He's in need of money, and probably we need to do something to make sure that he has good incentive to do business, because April and May, if you recall, we had to kind of cajole and maybe nudge people to come out, and just start. Of course, now a lot of digital adoption has happened actually. The environment probably has forced on us. But this was one small thing actually, just to give you as an example. Other than, I would say, customers, how do these other stakeholders, they certainly start making demands, and what changes you can do actually.
Okay.
Right. The other one example, and probably then over to Sriraj, I think as we see that, a lot of employees and a lot of our partners, they usually using digital tools. We realized one thing was about the security, the information security, the IT security that you need actually, because suddenly you find that, there is so much of data which is coming from different domains. Okay. And probably you just have to make sure that your IT security guys are always on their toes. And, we of course form a team, and just to make sure that, we are a little extra prepared. In between, we just also got, a couple of our partners who were really, impacted by the ransomware actually. So these things we saw, I'm saying, during this time. And I think information security or IT security, okay, I think is also of paramount importance in these times where we increased, increasingly people working in domains which are not completely in your control.
You're right. We actually done 3 or 4 such discussions just on security, different aspects of security, all the way from the boardroom to the technical center and all that. Dr. Sriraj, your views on other stakeholders and their priorities. You're on mute, if you can unmute.
Yeah, see, basically, we had Amphan and Nisarga exactly during the lockdown time. So there were a lot of claims being reported from those areas, and we do have an adoption of, we do use certain apps for motor vehicle inspection, etc., as well as assessment of motor vehicle claims. Which we actually, that's how it happens for motor vehicle. You can send the link, we call it IVs, or we have IMOS for the surveyor, etc. They can use it, they can have the video and send it to us, and you can get claim approved. So we had to actually modify a bit this type of this and give it to our assessors for even the property claims. So the claims which are happening, the claims to be assessed in where this cyclone had occurred there, both in West Bengal as well as here. So that did require, and the IT team, of course, was able to deliver that modification very quickly, and that helped us in actually getting things done very, very fast. So I think these are things which are similarly, we also had our direct marketing team. So the market where no new motor vehicles were being coming.
Right.
So business was more on renewals, etc. So how do you gather business? So the IT team came out with very quick links where you could actually send those links and people could just renew it using those links. So
Click
I think,
and renew.
yeah, absolutely. So these are things which very shortcut, very quick fix solutions were adopted as per the needs of different channels, as per the different needs of different, so that they could actually start using them.
Okay, that's great. What about government schemes? Government also announced certain schemes for insurance. Were you guys able to put the people and infrastructure behind that swiftly, or that required some, I don't know?
So it did happen. See, government actually, one came up when they opened up, they started unlocking the sector. They said that, you should have, they issued a guidelines to all the SMEs, etc., that people should have a health insurance policy to cover their employees when they were opening. So insurance companies came up very quickly and devised products especially for them. And even during this COVID period, a lot of these things came up, and insurance companies were, so it is product development and again deploying it quickly. I think that takes a lot of efforts. So when you deploy a product in a normal sense, in a normal, it takes its own time. You have got time to do it, and you launch it with fanfare, etc. But here there is nothing. You need to actually go to the market very quickly. I think these are things where people had to work day in and day out to actually make this available for people to. And these policies, of course, during those period when the unlocking happened, group health policies, for the SME especially, that was a sector which we never saw people were going in, but you could have a shop owner having 7 and other higher employees. They were opting for group health covers, or you could have smaller workshops who started, because for them, they used to have, it was needed that they produce that they have a policy to start their operation. So I think that happened, and this, so insurance companies did come up very quickly with all these things to provide the solutions.
Okay, great. Let's go on then. The other thing we want to touch about is automation. Automation is kind of what brings efficiency and speed and many other benefits, agility perhaps. What has been your experience with automation in the past? And what do you see as the roadmap for automation as the road ahead? Intelligent automation or any other kind of automation for the organization? Who would like to take this up to start with? Deepu, maybe.
Manoj, I can take it. So essentially, see, I think we already discussed a lot about RPA, and RPA, is what we call little AI, whereby we automate repetitive processes. And there's also this concept called IPA, which is intelligent, process automation. And I think the point that many of my co-panelists made, a lot of the activities which can be done by bots have been automated by use of these various tools. For example, when the lockdown happened, and let's say when team leaders were not available, we had bots, distributing cases to people on the shop floor or people who are working from home, the case allocation. So that's how we know that happened. Similarly, Manoj, let's take claims in motor insurance. Now, what used to happen earlier, you crash a car and then you call up the insurance company, they'll send a surveyor from the nearest spot, he'll come assess the car, so on and so forth. What we have done by deploying AI and a tool called photogrammetry, we have now come out with a 30-minute claim settlement process where the customer takes photographs and he sends it to us using the mobile app. Our tool basically assesses the images and conveys the amount to him. He says okay, and we transfer the amount to him. All this happens in 20 to 30 minutes. So just 2 examples, how at the start of the process, when the bot allocates cases for policy issuance, and in claims, how we have used AI to basically automate claim processing. So automation has played a key role.
Any other examples of automation making a difference?
So maybe I'll take another example.
Yes,
very similar. So when this COVID happened and so on, and we were kind of piloting some other processes. So like what some of the earlier panelists said, getting the call centers and calling the customers and people calling from home and all this become a little challenging process. So immediately we kind of expanded, the process which is bot calling. So we have now, a bot calling both in a male and female voice, calling our customers for the renewal premium reminders and so on. And it's powered, by all the intelligent things, NLP and AI and so on. So it can kind of understand what the person is saying, respond to them intelligently and so on. So that got implemented very quickly when the lockdown happened, and it's able to now call a very large proportion of a portfolio. While that is something very normal, I think what we realized after 6 months of operations over here is that the conversion or the collection that I get by doing a calling from a bot were actually better than doing a human call.
Really?
Because I think what happened was, we used to announce upfront that this is a bot calling. So the customers also were very intuitive, very to listen to the bot and answer properly and so on. So that's one. Second is even our CSAT NPS scores for these calls are actually better than a human calling. Because again, what we realize, and we actually went and did a deep dive why that's happening. So what we understand is, customers, when we heard the call, the customers were paying attention to the call, listening to the call properly, they were answering, because they now realize that they're not talking to humans, so they can interrupt and say, sorry, I'm not keen, and so on. So those things also happen. So what the point is, there is a process where we need some automation, and there is automation, and we kind of married together, and it's given us a wonderful solution. So that's, I think,
super
interesting.
example.
Interesting.
Please give me some one or two more insightful examples.
Okay, maybe I'll share one example. Actually, I think, bots we see in the past, actually, mostly we have deployed it for tasks which are little repetitive, or where probably the manual effort is little intense, actually. And bot comes as a very, very handy kind of tool, actually, there. Interestingly, during these times, we've implemented a bot for not doing just these activities, but things like integrating two systems, where instead of the traditional layers, MQ or anything of those kind of tools, we've experimented with bot. And wonderfully, I'll tell you, the experience has been great, because we find that probably they are a little more sturdier than your traditional technologies. And I think for us, one such experiment paved the way for taking up such more, applications of bot. And I think it has been really a learning. I think one great learning, has been, Manoj, that sometimes, you see very fancy or sophisticated technologies, and a simple technology like a bot, which is cheaper, faster to implement. It gives you what you want, actually, and it can just give you not only efficiently, but also very cheaply. So I think that has been a great learning personally, I think, for us.
Okay. So Yusuf has to drop out. Yusuf, any last comments on anything else before you drop out?
I think, just a point, the automation and all this is very good. And, the way I see is, how do you understand the business process first, and then see how it can be adopted? Because the key is, not making the technology, key is ensuring the adoption. There are a host of technologies available, but if you are not able to ensure the adoption by the customer, it's of no use.
Right.
So I think that is where, all of us come, in that how do you understand the need of customer and then develop solution technology and offer, so that you can manage the adoption. I think that's the point I would make.
Absolutely. Anyone would like to ask Yusuf anything? Maybe Mahesh or anyone, all of you. This is an opportunity. If you want to ask him something, then before he leaves.
Yeah, no, I relate to what Mr. Yusuf was saying in terms of understanding the process and what you really want to achieve, right? And that sort of becomes my viewpoint also. What we've seen with customers is that typically there are three waves, I would say, of RPA, the way you need to adopt in an organization, and we've seen that in customers. So first one is really the task-based one, which Hitesh was mentioning, where it's really the levels of efficiency and productivity for people and repetitive tasks that comes out of the positive element out of this. Second is really improving the business performance by sort of leveraging the capacity available to enhance the experience, and it straight directly gets into the revenue improvisation as well, which probably what Mr. Yusuf was saying, right? Understanding and probably reworking the processes a bit. That's really where the RPA element fits in. The third wave is really where transformational values are achieved, and that's really where customer experience goes to a whole different level. Like was probably what Deepu was mentioning, and some of our customers have experienced that. Right? I mean, why not give insurance based on the driving behavior of the person? If the person really takes care of the car and has got a good driving experience, how do you measure that? I mean, even with a simple smartphone, there are companies like Nimla who do that, right? So it's all about delivering that sort of experience and differentiating customers and their premiums also accordingly. So that requires a whole new platform, a whole new process, outlook. And RPA and AI as an intelligent platform can probably help give quite a few of that. So I relate to all what the panelists are really saying. I think all of them are in different phases, of course, in terms of the automation. I think this is probably the right panel to even judge the success of RPA.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Take care.
Pleasure,
Thank you,
pleasure.
Yusuf. Thank you for contributing.
Thank
See
you.
you later.
Bye-bye.
So let's come to the last one, or maybe 1.5 questions. So what do you see as the future of automation or intelligent automation? Is it going to be driven by lots of small cases, or do you think that automation can make a big change also? Intelligent automation or something. Maybe, intelligence and automation combined can actually achieve something substantial. Any thoughts on that? Could it be revolutionary, for example? We're always looking for revolutionary solutions and revolutionary technologies and leapfrogging. So one of the good things India has done is leapfrog certain technologies that others are still working on the older versions. Do you see
If I could just take this point.
Yes, sure.
I think we have to understand one major difference what the new normal will pose is, I think whatever we have been speaking at a very basic elementary level of automation or RPAs or AIs, that's done and dusted. I think there's a good amount of maturity that has been achieved even without COVID. So that's what I would call, in my view, as the first wave of cost efficiency and technology adoption that resulted. So a few years back, those things started. Maybe that COVID will and the present time would give some more impetus for some time, but largely that's done. That part of it. A large part of it is automated, and the remaining manual labor that you need is any which ways you need the level of people, because that's an individual interaction with customers or the end user. Now, the second part when you will look at is where the things have started changing and will make a huge impact is in the areas of supervisory role, or even I would say certain portion of middle management role. I'll give you an example. Like if there is an underwriter, now you would have eliminated the data entry stage by asking people to enter it on mobile. All of that is done. A set of tools, automation plus RPA plus AI will bring it. Now, what it has done is by the time it has gone to the next level, let's say insurance proposal comes to an underwriter, the underwriter applies his underwriting knowledge, rules, and then says whether it can be given at this rate or call for a requirement or decline the case, whatever that might be. Now, this is that layer that is getting completely taken over by automation.
Okay.
Now, today, 15 years back, it was 20 to 30% what we love to call in this industry as straight through processing. Today, nobody talks below 65.
Okay.
And by 2023, there are various write-ups on this subject which talks about the straight through processing will be nothing less than 80%. Now, what it does is it has started inching up the value chain and started delivering you the incremental benefits. Yes, it is costly to implement certain AI and those type of tools, but the corresponding benefit that it tries to give you is equally value add. Because it tries to replace someone probably who gets a 10 lakh salary. If I'm just looking at a people.
Right.
But I would like to move beyond people on this technology. What it gets is accuracy. It's not about speed. Many of the things that you would find is about accuracy and not necessarily about speed. It is not necessarily about saving labor, but doing it in a consistent manner. It is not about having a percentage of error, but moving into a scenario where you would say no error. And that's the area where this whole space is building. So the new AI, the new RPA, the new artificial self-learning NLPs, you can throw multiple terms because some of them have become the fashion of the day. But if you take these terminology, what does it mean? It means more intelligent thinking done by a machine, more subjective analysis done by a machine, and more accurate decision, which is what I would like to call as an enlightened decision or a knowledgeable decision being taken. This is where the core comes. And who are the people who today does is probably a manager or a team leader or a supervisor. That's that layer that's getting changed. And I see this happening more. Now, what next? The next is to say, bring out using the acquired knowledge by the tool to build its own AI. You first define the rule. The AI took its rule and started implementing it. The AI then got tagged with NLP and other technologies. What it does now is you give 10 rules. Using the combination of 10 rules and based on the use case that comes to it, it creates next 15 rules.
Okay.
All you have to do is just certify those rules look okay. It's the machine which has done it. It's not the human being.
The human does the certification.
It just then accumulates the 15 new rules into an existing 10 rules and creates a repository of 25 rules. So like you say, pay as you go. Here, it's a classic case of build intelligence as you go. The only difference is the intelligence gets built by the tool itself. And I see this is one big layer and sometimes can be a controversial layer, which is what is the true power of AI engine and the true power of NLP and the rest. Because if it has got to do with a customer service, picking up a customer call and replacing it, I don't think, and Mahesh would agree with me, I don't think that's the core of AI and that's the core of NLP. That's the core of machine learning. The core of this is how do you move up the value chain? And organizations have got the maturity, like I said, at the lower level. This is bound naturally to, this fruit is ripe to reap the benefits in the second layer. And that's where the next biggest bounty for an organization will come.
Okay. So Mahesh, what does your company or the IT industry think of middle level digital workers as such?
So I absolutely agree. So as I was saying, the three waves really that we talked about, right? So what was just talked about really was, having AI giving the next best action, the supervisory roles, and that's where the value addition, and even to an extent, the solutions today have come up with, having their own process PDD documents, and even the process flows are getting created by themselves, right? So that's where automations and even making automations have become automated, right? So the waves have progressed so much that customers who have already achieved wave 1s and the wave 2s really go through wave 3 to get that transformational pitches. I was example.
Manoj, if I can just add, Manoj, there's only one point. Now, if you see that sometimes the life also comes a full circle. We all started on this in this technology area to say, how can you replace, for example, a mundane activity or a repetitive activity? The AI, even in a simple call center, has sophisticatedly evolved itself to such an extent that if an irate customer picks up a phone, the AI immediately understands that a bot will not do. Nothing best that a human answers and says that, I'm just connecting you to my supervisor. The bot doesn't answer anything. It can answer, but it doesn't answer. So that's the new technology in the Western world, especially where it is picked up. Because let's also remember, human beings are social animals. We like to talk also to human beings. And many times, what I think will always be a bit superior to what a machine thinks. Or I may be an irate customer, which will not be there in its rule engine. And the AI has beautifully evolved to say, oh, if I can't answer this person, or this person seems to be of what you call as temperamental indicator being high, it automatically switches to an individual who takes over from there. The customer doesn't feel, he just sees a small blip in the call for just about 2 seconds.
Right.
And there's a human being who is actually stepped in. I would say that we have to keep our minds open and not say just automate. Automate with intelligence, act with accuracy, and build for consistency. Many a times building for scale is also not advisable, because not all organizations have scale, but all organizations need accuracy.
Correct.
Very
For
good
example,
point.
if there's a wealth management business, then obviously
Yeah,
that
it's
would have to
intelligence,
have
not scale.
not scale. Correct. Maybe Hitesh can say something about intelligent automation or some other aspect of automation that you see evolving in the insurance sector.
See, I'll tell you, I think Srinivasan has covered it very, very well, and I completely
Yes,
kind of
yes.
agree to what he has said. See, it is the second layer which has to be, now really be impacted. Okay? The first layer, repetitive, automative, maybe lower level, everything has been done. It is the second level where I think this thing, machine learning, as I would call it, AI or machine learning, okay, it has to play an impact. Now I'll tell you for life insurance particularly, okay. Underwriting is something which is very, very core. Okay, it is a skill which is a little difficult to acquire, and you will not get many underwriters actually across the industry, because you have people coming from two very different and diverse streams, okay, and acquiring this particular skill. So you have on one hand a person actually who is supposed to have good medical skills, and you teach him on how to decipher financials. Okay, these are two very different kind of streams, and you will never get a finance guy who is really good at kind of interpreting medical reports, and vice versa. What most insurance companies have done is that they've taken underwriters or they've taken I would say personnel with medical background, and they've taught them to decipher financials. Okay, and that is how an underwriter is born actually. But this skill is a very niche skill, and across it is in short supply. And I'll tell you, currently I would say the industry is really having a challenge because of whatever reasons. The environment is also there. We are in India, actually not everything is so readily available. For example, in certain markets, you will find that customer medical history is readily available. Like we have credit bureaus, which will give you information about the financial standing of customers. They will also give you some information about the medical, I would say, or his health. I'm saying they will give you some details. Those kind of details are not very available. And as a result, the underwriting process, okay, becomes a little cumbersome. Now, this is a perfect example where probably I would say, machine learning or AI can come into play. Okay, and I think the movement has begun. And if I think we are able to address something like this, let's say an underwriter, STP is one part actually, and I think we did say that, okay, everyone is talking about 55 to 60% STP, and eventually times will come, maybe in a couple of years, you will talk about 80. I would say that machine learning probably has the capability to take it even much higher. Because essentially what it is doing, it is mimicking nothing but the underwriter, and what it is based on data actually. The machine observes. Yeah. Okay, you have got a particular kind of proposal. Okay, this proposal has certain attributes or characteristics. Okay, it stores this as in data and sees what the underwriter is doing, and probably then tries to mimic. Moment you log in a new proposal to see whether the characteristics or attributes of that proposal match with the existing data, and accordingly, what did the underwriter do? The machine will try to mimic actually. I think it is just a matter of time where this will also get matured. And this is probably just knocking the doors, to, I would say, activities where there is some kind of judgment which is involved. Interestingly, not just in operations, actually, we find now there are use cases of, I would say, you can talk in bots or machine learning, not just in operations, but I think across all aspects of the organization, be it accounts or be it HR or even, HR, for example. You can use AI and you can predict actually who's the person who's at risk of who the organization is at the risk of losing actually, okay, or who the person is who's probably is not likely to be happy, okay, and probably there is some bit of intervention which is required by HR. So there are the aspects which are a little judgmental in nature, but I think machine learning is probably is just knocking the doors, and it is time that organization really reap the benefits that the technology is offering.
Okay, thank you.
Manoj, sorry to interrupt. I have a 4:15 call for which I have to step out in a minute's time.
Just,
in case you see me missing at 4:15.
I think we will close at 4:15 because I also have to. Yeah.
Let's close it.
It's been very interesting.
We have 2 minutes. Anyone wants to make any last comments? and then we will close it. Anyone has
No, I
anything that?
No, I think
My
I
only
just,
closing comment, would be, in any of these automations, especially AI, robotics, RPA, the most important thing one has to spend time is to say, how is the process journey going to be easy? How is it going to make it simple for my end consumer, whoever that, it can be a customer, or it can be an employee or anybody. Is that happening? And the third and the most important thing is it just an automation, or is it an automation that can build on itself? Because automation has been around for many decades. This is the time of intelligent automation where it builds on itself. And that's where we will create a true niche and a true trust on not just automation, but and cost efficiency, but also being seen as delivering value add to the customer, whoever that end customer is. And that's one would be my parting comment on.
Yes, fantastic, actually. And that gives that overall picture as well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your meeting. Deepu, any last comments?
No, I just basically wanted to say that it always, starts with the customer. I think very often, we get sometimes caught up with the latest buzzword. But if you figure out, that the deployment or the change that you bring about has to be use case led or customer led, then when the rubber hits the road, the chances of success are very high.
Okay, great. Hitesh, any last comments from you?
No, I think I can only say that it was a good platform. At least we got to know, probably views and maybe what is going through in other organizations and very, very similar kind of businesses. Okay, and I think this session was very interesting.
Thank you.
Certainly, I'm saying technology is going to be an important enabler for all business strategies, and it just probably vindicates that belief.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Sriraj, your last comments?
Yeah, I think one is, as we're talking about in the middle layer, this should be helping and this should be used more, etc. My take is actually AI should get to the lowest level. When today I want to actually source a proposal, when my sales guy goes to source a proposal, why should he take time that he actually sends it to the underwriter, it goes to the bucket, it goes to his bucket, this bucket to this bucket, and then it takes a call, so that and then it decides. So I'm just talking about maybe medical insurance would be a bit difficult for it, but things like motor insurance, etc., where this type of things where where insurers do distributor-wise analysis and then vehicle make model like analysis, etc. So if he's sourcing a proposal, he enters that and he gets it there only. It should be that. So that is where we will empower our salespeople, that you take a decision there and there, you accept it or you don't accept it. So instead of it going to the underwriter and saying, no, I will not, this is not to be done, etc. I think that is something which kept said.
So Mahesh, last point to you. Then can all this be possible using current set of technologies, or some work is still required?
Yeah, I'll go back to the same point that Sumit mentioned, that anything is possible, and RPA and Blue Prism really stands for making that art possible, right? So it's all about in all of this, if you really look at it, the customer, operational risks, security, all of this also needs to be really looked at when we try and transform quite a few of these processes, right? So I think when people scale and when people need more accuracy, more nimbleness in the business, it's all about having all of this securely delivered by a platform which can also encapsulate AI and even future technologies that we are today not even aware of, right? And I really hope that all our customers do well in these tough times, and best of luck to you all, and happy really having to chat up with all of you.
Yes, thank you all very much. It has been really an insightful discussion. Several new ideas that I've personally learned from all of you. I'm sure there are some things that each of you is taking from each other.